What is up, beautiful people of the world? Welcome back to the Friendly Rivals podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Tarr, joined by not my other host, Will Clack. This is actually not Will, in case you guys couldn't tell. This is actually very much Hayden Desmond, our resident film expertise and Auburn coordinator here on the Plains. So we are here to break down the recent hiring of, it's not really SEC news, but it is SEC news.
It's SEC without being SEC news.
Yes. Yeah, SEC alumnus news, if we want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
Gus Malzahn to UCF. We're going to talk today about why, and this is the stance we're taking. Hayden, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a home run hire for the Knights. I mean, this is.
I do believe that outside of the Power Five, this is probably the best and probably top some of the Power Five hires that we've seen so far.
Absolutely. And not to mention, just to kick things off, UCF got rid of Heupel, who had evidently run recruiting into the ground.
I think into the ground is too nice.
Yes.
I think he went very much below the ground.
And went and picked up Malzahn, who has been habitually a very good recruiter. Someone who's familiar with the area, an outstanding athlete from the state of Florida. Anthony Schwartz comes to mind. People of that nature. He knows how to recruit the area. I think this is a home run hire for the Knights for a multitude of reasons, not just because – well, before Heupel left, he was making $2.3 million a year. Malzahn signed a 5-year, $11.5 million agreement, which means that base salary, Malzahn is making $2.3 million a year. They freed up some space for his coaching staff, meaning Malzahn had $3.3 million to play around with to hire a coaching staff.
And he got his.
Yes. This is huge for Gus and Christie. This is a big-time move for them. For the sole factor of, I, one, think that Malzahn will be there for all 5 years of his contract. And two, it's almost like a cheat code. He's recruiting in the state of Florida. He's getting the looked-over leftovers that people have not noticed that often turn into star players. And something else Malzahn's always been able to do is work the transfer portal. So
every year it felt like at Auburn he was bringing in an Ivy League or a Sun Belt O-lineman that would come in and play a key part.
Or a certain quarterback from Baylor that took the team to an SEC championship in his first year.
Did you know that Jarrett Stidham was a transfer from Baylor?
I had heard that. I'd heard that. So Hayden, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how much on one being an abysmal failure and 10 being they knocked this one out of the park. What are you giving UCF on this hire?
I say in terms of UCF news, I'd give them a solid 8-2. Obviously, with it being outside of the Power Five, you're not going to have the huge names like a Shane Beamer going to South Carolina. That's a big name going to a Power Five school and somewhere that he knows really well. But I think if you look outside of the Power Five, this is the best hire. I think Malzahn he's coming in and getting weapons immediately. Dylan Gabriel, that quarterback, immediately comes to mind. I'm kind of sad that Mackenzie Milton is leaving. I think Mackenzie Milton on his recently –
Did that not feel like a missed Nick Marshall opportunity?
Yes.
With a better arm.
Yes. Now, Milton is going to be good at FSU. Milton, I think, is a great player. I really wish he would have stayed and competed with Gabriel for the starting job this year, especially now that Malzahn's there, because I feel like Malzahn's system is very much suited to work for the personnel that UCF has, especially right now. They're all about speed. They're all about tempo, running the ball, getting the ball back on defense for the offense to make plays.
Does Malzahn's presence make them an automatic contender in the first year for the AAC championship?
See, that's tough because you have teams like Cincinnati. I think Holgerson is going to figure it out eventually at Houston. SMU had its ups and downs last year, but once they sort of find with Shane Buechele, obviously you've seen the last few years. But I think if you're putting out lines, SMU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, those teams are all up there. UCF is definitely going to be a contender.
Throw Tulsa in the mix.
Tulsa, I forgot about Tulsa. I would throw Tulsa in the mix. I don't know if they're going to win it the first year, but I think they're definitely going to be in the conversation.
I think that also we overlook, and I've never been an advocate, but I will take this angle for a moment. A lot of people, we get so fixated on the Power Five. And then a lot of people that are fans of AAC schools, UCF really comes to mind. Memphis being another one of those teams that is perennially in the conversation. Last year was Rocky, but that's neither here nor there. About renaming it to the Power Six, calling themselves the Power Six. The AAC is the best Group of Five conference, and it's not close.
No, not close at all.
And from top to bottom, I made an argument with someone the other day about you could almost say it's a more competitive conference than the ACC.
I don't think that's an argument. I think you're 100% right there. Because in the ACC, realistically, over the last 5 to 10 years, you have Clemson, Florida State. Last year, you had Notre Dame. Are they staying in the ACC, or was that sort of a one-year
No
thing?
word yet, but it sounds like a one-hit wonder.
That's what I thought it was going to be. So I don't even know if you can count Notre Dame as being an ACC competitive, even though they were in the championship game. North Carolina, like I said, is coming on the up. You have teams that have promise. Like I think Georgia Tech is one of those teams that has a lot of promise. Like the coaching staff and the community and everything that they're building down there is one of the best in college football. But if you look at the AAC from top to bottom, Cincinnati, Memphis, UCS, SMU, South Florida had a couple good years with Quentin Flowers. Temple and Houston are teams that always somehow figure out how to make noise. Tulane, yes. And Tulsa, like we said earlier. But like Cincinnati was competing for a college football playoff spot, and I said me and you had conversations about this, that Cincinnati should have legitimately been higher than they were, and they also should have beat Georgia.
That's yes. I really can't go much further than that. But the point that I think you're catching on to that I'm trying to make here is Malzahn's not leaving. I mean, he's leaving the toughest schedule in college football. To go to anything would be less tough. Mm-hmm. However, he's not going to play gimme games for 8 games a season.
Mm-mm.
He's going to have to coach and coach well if he wants to win his way through this conference. Because you look around, there are a handful of head coaches. Fick comes to mind. Luke Fickell comes to mind that could easily be sitting in a Power 5 job right now.
Mm-hmm. Or an NFL job, if he really wanted it.
If they really wanted it. So this is not a joke of a conference, but I think it's great for Malzahn. You can get away with not being – if there's one thing that you can take away from the AAC, you can kind of get away with not having as good of an offensive line, which has never been Malzahn's strong suit, if you can make up for it with raw athleticism. Because I think the reason AAC games look so fast is because there's
You're always moving.
A lot of moving parts and not a lot of defense. But with a hire today that was made today, I think UCF changes that narrative in the next 3 years.
I firmly agree with your point, and I'm going to let you take it on this hire that you're speaking of because I know you love it just as much as I do.
I am absolutely stoked to say that I was stoked to read that Travis Williams had the opportunity to take the defensive coordinator position, which came as little surprise to most Auburn beat people, beat writers, beat coverers. We all figured that there was going to be a point in time that he was going to get his opportunity. I think this is the perfect opportunity for him. If worse comes to worse and he doesn't pan out as a defensive coordinator, which I think he will, he's got a job on the Malzahn staff.
Wherever Malzahn
goes.
That just proves that Malzahn will go to battle for his guys. And I love this hire so much. T. Will is a player's coach through and through. Malzahn and T. Will got guys that had no business being at Auburn in the linebacker department. Names like Deshaun Davis, KJ Britt.
Owen Papo.
As of recent. Zacoby McClain. Guys, and he would even I think we can both agree that his presence sort of transferred to all levels of the defense. I know Derek Brown was one of his favorites, and even guys in the secondary were guys that he loved. And he's one of those guys who, when the defense makes a play, T. Will is past the numbers on the field, jumping up and tackling them. And I love that about him.
And that is the biggest thing for me about Travis Williams. And people overlook a lot his ability to flip commits.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned a moment ago, Owen Papo. Everyone in the world thought when Owen Papo was making his commitment, University of Georgia, 45 minutes down the road. Kirby Smart, give credit where credit's due. I think that I don't necessarily put him in the top 5 for coaching in the SEC, but Kirby Smart's done well recruiting. And the fact that Travis Williams, an large unproven linebackers coach, was able to flip someone like Papo, a 5-star top recruit, one of the top recruits in the country, to a program who, let's face the facts, folks, Auburn's not really a title contending team. Wasn't then either. It says something, and I don't think he will have a hard time selling UCF, and I don't think Malzahn's going to have a hard time selling UCF to kids in the state of Florida. I think that if you look around,
no, I don't think.
Look who you're recruiting against. I think in a couple of years, you're looking at it's a two-team show in the state of Florida. I think it's the University of Florida will continue to recruit well. They always have. They always will. Not to mention, give credit where credit's due. Dan Mullen. You can dislike the guy. And I do. Excuse me. But he's a good recruiter. And he's, in large, a good coach. But if you look around the rest, I mean, he can't win big games. But we'll never be able to take away what he did in Starkville, Mississippi. That is the most impressive feat in college football in a very long time.
And as the quarterback coach and OC at Florida the first time.
Yes. It is hard to overlook all of that. But I would think that if I'm a recruit in Florida, Miami and FSU have the Power 5 appeal.
But that's about it.
But are they objectively better football teams than UCF?
I think if you look at the rankings in the state of Florida right now, obviously University of Florida, the Gators are number one. They compete in the best conference in the country. They were in the SEC championship game last year.
Right.
Granted, you're playing almost with house money with Kyle Trask there sitting for a couple years and then getting the chance to play and proving that he was worth it.
Right.
Miami, if De'Aaron King comes back from his ACL injury, is going to be very good again.
I question them on the defensive side of the ball.
They struggled a little bit on defense, but you also have to remember their top guys and Gregory Rousseau didn't play.
But something else to think about. They're never going to be playing in an ACC championship.
No,
that's not a team that can play in an ACC championship. So if I'm a recruit and in conference title and New Year's Six bowls and actually winning hardware matters to me, your best chance if you're not going to the University of Florida
is to go to UCF. Notice how I didn't even mention Florida State.
That's just a dumpster fire that we need to stay objective and just not ignore. But that's something that's got to be addressed at a later time because that whole scenario is a hot mess. But there's just so much talent in the state of Florida. I mean,
you could pick one county in Florida, whether it be guys from South Florida that come out, T.Y. Hilton, A.B., Travis Benjamin, the great receiver for the Chargers, Lamar Jackson, names like that come to mind. You could take that one county in Florida, and it could produce more NFL-ready talent than probably 30 to 40% of the rest of the country.
Right. When you're looking at recruiting, you're really looking at 4 states, right? You're looking at California. You're looking at Texas, Georgia, and Florida. I think that Malzahn staying in the Southeast, where he's recruited Georgia well. I mean, if you look at, I think Auburn fans overlook this. It is impossible to recruit at Auburn for the sole reason
you're in the same state as Alabama.
You were sandwiched in between the University of Alabama and the University of Georgia. And if you go to one of those two programs, let's face the facts, folks. Georgia can't win the big game, but they can get there. The reality that Malzahn was pulling in the recruiting classes that he was at Auburn. No one even tried to give me that crap about, oh, well, Auburn's been historically a good program. Objectively false. Not true. You're recruiting as the little brother, and he did that well. You're trying to tell me he can't go to a program who's been trending that recruits like to look at and like to entertain, and he can't do well there? I will call you your bull on that any day of the week.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. The UCF had the AAC's number 1 ranking in 2018 for recruiting class, and then in 2020 they were number 7, and so far in 2021 they're number 4. And I don't understand how they can't be number 1 every year with a guy like Gus, especially with the way that he's been recruiting.
And mind you, he already dropped 2 offers yesterday. The day after he was hired, he extended 2 offers. And don't be surprised when he steals one from Auburn.
I would not be surprised. I think Gus. I don't think Gus is petty, but I think Gus. If there was a kid that was going to sign to Auburn, and if there was a kid that was going to sign to, say, South Florida, he'd be like, let's hit the Auburn guy a little bit harder, and just try to get him.
I don't even think it's petty. There was and I should know this. I believe it was a linebacker out of Opelika High School that's committed to the Auburn right now, class of 22.
Mm-hmm.
So his signing day is a full calendar year away. That Malzahn extended an offer to yesterday. Nothing would surprise me less. What we have learned in the wake of the Malzahn firing that has created, for lack of a better term, turmoil on the Plains and division beyond what anyone could have believed, is that players came to Auburn to play for Gus Malzahn, not to play for Auburn, in large. So
I think that.
I think that there's no reason. If I'm a Knights fan, I'm stoked. I'm stoked.
Yeah, I think you bring in, because let's face it, Hupel is a good coach. He did what he could when Scott Frost left. Hupel's not a big name. You bring in a guy like Malzahn, that has national recognition. Malzahn has won a national championship as an OC. He's been to another one as a head coach. He's been in a couple of SEC championships. He's been on the sideline for big games. You and I have been there. He's been in the last 4 years. He's 2-0 against Alabama at home.
He's the last coach to beat Nick Saban.
I'm just really excited to see where it goes.
I'm on the same page with you, and I never intended for it to revert back to this, but I'm going to go ahead and say what every Auburn fan should be thinking right now. And don't get me wrong, I think that Harsin on the Plains is actually a great move. I personally agree with that hire. There could not have been a more wrong time to fire Gus Malzahn than in 2020. I don't know that there's ever a right time, but I think if there was such thing as the absolute worst case scenario, worst time frame to fire him, it was this year.
I would agree with that.
Because what we learned throughout the whole coaching search is that Auburn fired Malzahn and didn't have a plan. Never had a plan.
Didn't have a plan until Alan Green decided we need one.
Correct. And like I said, don't get me wrong, I like Brian Harsin.
I love the Harsin hire.
I think it was a great fit for Auburn. However, you cannot convince me he would not have been available and would not have taken the job in 2021.
Harsin said it himself. He wasn't going to leave Boise for anyone. So I think if Alan Green would have made the call 11, 12 months from now, Harsin would
have been the same outcome.
Yeah.
Now, would Malzahn have been due for a fluke year? He gets Bama and Georgia. He would have gotten Bama and Georgia at home this year.
Which, by all, he probably would have beat him and gotten an extension or a raise, knowing and seeing the patterns that have happened in the past. So we really can't say this would have happened, this would have happened, this would have happened, but it's fun to think.
It's fun to think what if.
Yeah.
And you have to sit back and think, I wonder. One of the most notable benefits that Malzahn got in his contract was a membership to the local country club. Okay? Hear me out. I'm tying this in. I know it's a stretch, but hear me out. You think when Malzahn and when Gus and Christie were out on the course, I don't know, maybe he shoots par. Good for him. Hacking using his 3-wood out of the fairway, he was sitting there laughing to himself, almost thinking, whatever. I just got a bankroll. They're in a whole world of shit. And I'm playing golf with my wife and hanging out with my grandkids. Who really won the Malzahn firing?
Malzahn even said it. He said, I had no plan on coaching in 2021. And then the UCF job, which he called a top 20 job in the country.
I don't think he's wrong.
I also don't think he's wrong.
I don't think it's wrong. You have your tiers of coaching jobs, right? So in your top tier, you have Alabama,
Yes.
USC,
Texas.
Texas, bingo, Notre Dame, Michigan, regardless of where they're at. Michigan is a top tier job.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the rest. Correct me if I'm leaving anyone out. Clemson, still not a top tier job.
Yeah.
Clemson is now. It has not been in the past. So I'll throw Clemson.
When Dabo was the interim 12 years ago, that was not a top job in the country.
Exactly. We'll put them there now. So there's your 7. I can't think of 13 other jobs. I can think of maybe 10 that I'd rather have than the UCF job. But that'd be out of bias.
Yeah, I could give you 10 to 12 that I personally would be like, I would love this job.
Like you and I would love to take the Georgia Tech job right now.
Oh, dude.
Would most of the country like to take the Georgia Tech job? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would love to take the Oklahoma State job. Would most people do that? Also, I digress. Oklahoma belongs in that top tier jobs.
Yes.
But there are a lot of jobs that I would personally like to take, but I can't think of 12 jobs now. I think 12 jobs that most people would rather have, or that would be more appealing as a coach than the UCF job.
And even if you look at the Power 5 jobs that were filled this year, Tennessee,
No.
don't really want that job. Texas, Sarkisian, okay, that might be a cool job. Arizona, absolutely not. Auburn, me and you would love that job, but like,
Speak
I don't
for
know.
yourself.
Okay. I don't know if a lot of other people would have liked that job. Vandy,
Derek Mason would have loved that job.
Derek Mason's the only man in the country that would have loved that job. Illinois was another one. South Carolina. That's the Power 5s.
Outside of Texas, here's a real question for you. Outside of Texas, was UCF the most appealing job in this coaching carousel? Was it? Food for thought?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think Malzahn's a winner. I think Gus, UCF hit it out of the park. Gus lucked out. There's no way in hell you could pay anyone enough money to go to Tennessee or South Carolina. All you're going to do is get beat up on by Florida and Georgia in your conference, and if you're Tennessee, you're going to get your butt whooped by Alabama.
In your division.
In your division.
Even in your conference. It's not like, oh, we might have to play Georgia and Florida this year because they're East and we're West. It's like, no, we are going there. They are coming here. That's 0-2 on the season, and that's just something that we have to deal with because
Tennessee you have 3 free losses because you got to play Alabama.
Yeah. And Lord knows the sanctions that are going to come down on them.
Oh, let's not forget South Carolina. Now that we're back to normal, Clemson, they're 0-3 to start just to begin. The ceiling is 9-3.
Mm-hmm. At that's being like absolute best. That's 4 cupcake games, 2 Hail Marys, and 3 that like you weren't supposed to win, but somehow Shane Beamer pulled something out of his ass and managed to make it all work.
So outside of Texas, which anyone's a fool to not take the Texas job because they'll throw you a bag and you'll get 3 extra years that you didn't deserve, even if you're not a good coach.
I.e. Charlie Strong.
My man, Charlie Strong. All right.
Charlie Strong.
Outside of Texas, UCF was a great job. And I'm not sure that if you're leaving a school like Auburn, you'd want to go anywhere else. You'd want to go there somewhere similar. Like,
if you're Gus Malzahn and you want to run the same offense, there was nowhere else. Where else of the Power 5 team or even the group of 5 teams that I listed would you want to go that would allow you the freedom to run the offense that might not have worked with the personnel that you've had the last couple of years, but you've seen the success and you want to implement with
and you're surrounded by kids that you can recruit that will buy into that offense. And the coolest thing to me, and this is going to be the last note because I know we've gone a little longer than we planned on, but good for Malzahn for saying, to hell with all this, I'm calling plays for the rest of my career.
I'm happy for him.
Good for him.
I'm happy for him.
And you know, Auburn fans got so wrapped up in, and trust me, at times it was pain to cover. You know, run up the middle, slants, screens,
Punt.
punt. And it's a pain. It is. However, when you go to a school in the AAC where if he wanted to, could legitimately run a trick play every possession.
This is going to be the greatest NCAA 14 season in real life
Ever.
since Malzahn had Nick Marshall.
Yes. I would actually, you know what? Let's save this video since it's going on YouTube anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And for all 4 of our viewers, 3 of those being my mom, all right? I want y'all to hold us to this. Let's look at the end of 2021-22. And I'm going to get back with you. I know you're graduating in May. And let's sit down and look at how similar the numbers are.
I would 100 – hold on. I'm going to pull up because I just want to know. So
Because I could very realistically, I think that UCF's going to go 9-3 this year. I looked at their schedule. They opened their season against Boise State, which is objectively hilarious. And if UCF beats Boise State, I give everyone permission to laugh their ass off.
Agreed. Okay. In Nick Marshall's, should I do just 2013, just 2014, or both? You pick.
Just national championship campaign.
So that's 2013, correct?
13.
Yes. So 2013, he was 59.4 completion percentage, 1,976 yards through the air. That's an average of 8.3 yards per attempt. It's pretty good. 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. On the ground, 172 attempts, 1,068 yards, 6.2 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns, and 1 receiving touchdown for 35 yards.
Dylan Gabriel, 2 receiving touchdowns this year, or you're a bum?
Line's at 1.5, over.
Hammer it.
Hammer it.
I do think that this team. I don't think that this is an AAC championship this first year. I just don't think.
Not this first year.
But nothing would surprise me less than if they found themselves there off a couple of goofy plays, and it just has an eerie resemblance.
It's a fake punt against South Florida. It's a tip drill interception from the end zone that gets them 6 points
Against Boise State.
Against Boise State. They pull out a fake punt against Boise State just because.
Or what poetic justice would it be if UCF just curb stomped Boise State? That might be deserving of Malzahn buying everyone dinner at the Waffle House.
The closest Waffle House is what? 12 minutes from the campus, from the stadium?
No, there's one on campus.
You think they take campus money?
Like night card or whatever?
Yeah, ours is a Tiger card. I'm sure theirs is a night card. They say, get knighted. That's how it works, right?
I would be disappointed if it wasn't. Also, Malzahn's knighted now, so that's cool.
That I love that video of him.
It was so cringe.
Because he was like, he looked and he was like, really?
I got to do this?
I got a hug from Albie and you want this guy to hit me with a plastic sword? All right, cool. I'll get down.
Well, Hayden, thank you so much for breaking this down with me.
I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this. In analysis, we think that this is a horrible hire. UCF's going to suffer. No, not actually. Thank you so much for siding with me on this one. On a personal note, I mentioned this in one of our earlier episodes. I don't know if you've seen it or if I've sent you the clip. If not, Hayden, I'm not worried about it. I wish Gus Malzahn and Christy and the rest of their family nothing but the best. I really do.
I wish Gus and Miss Christy have all the best in the world. I hope that eventually they're in an AAC championship and she's under the stadium watching on TV just screaming.
Yes, I genuinely I wish them the best. For those of you who have never had the privilege of speaking with Gus Malzahn, and I do say privilege because yes, he is the GOAT at Coach Talk. Mm-hmm. But when you talk to him off the record, Gus and Christy are 2 of the most genuine people I've ever spoken to, especially in the sports realm. Because I mean, you get some really fake assholes.
And I think Auburn's great like that because we have guys. We had Gus. Obviously, he's one of the best. We got guys like Bruce Pearl and Butch Thompson, and guys on even like our women's soccer staff and Karen Hoppe and Jeff Graba in gymnastics. Like the coaches that
Terry Williams, Flournoy.
Oh, yes, Coach Flo. I can't believe I forgot Coach Flo. Coach Flo is hilarious, and she's one of the best coaches that I've ever had the privilege of talking to. But I really hope that Gus takes that and sort of takes the kindness of his heart into the AAC
and builds that culture at
yeah.
UCF. He is a great representation. If you were a Knights fan, he's going to be the best figurehead for your program.
You got a good one.
That you could have ever wished for. I think that Scott Frost did a great job bringing the energy. Malzahn's going to mellow that, but also he's going to bring another element of just bringing everything back down to earth and humbling everyone. Your players are not just going to be good football players; they're going to be good guys. Mm-hmm. And that's not just a cliche. It really goes to show when you get to speak with any of Malzahn's athletes that he's recruited and that he's kind of bred. They are different kids when they are juniors than when they come in as freshmen. And it's not just because of the play on the field. So wish the Malzahns the best of luck. Charge on, not fight on. Fight on's USC.
Right. I believe charge on.
Charge on. Oh yeah, it's charge on because they did the little tweet thing with someone peeking around the wall before they announced Malzahn and said hashtag charge on.
Google says the University of Central Florida's motto is "Reach for the Stars," if that means anything.
Reach for the stars and charge on. Tarr out. This has been another episode of Friendly Rivals. Thank you so much for joining me, Hayden.
Appreciate you for having me on.
We'll do it again soon.